everyone, it's Amberly and welcome back to my channel. I'm sorry I've been gone for like 2 weeks. I've actually been in a total reading slump, so like I didn't really have a lot to talk about, so that is the reason. I've been thinking a lot about my summer reading lately, like what is the vibe gonna be? Because oftentimes I go for beach reads, I think during the summer, kind of on and off. Like I'll read just for fun, right? Like in the summer it just feels like there's no pressure, you just kind of do what you want and you just kind of improvise. At least that's been my experience in the past, and not that it's not going to be my experience now, because I cherish that about the summertime, but I still really enjoy kind of setting up the vibe for the next season. And even though you guys know I don't really do TBRs, like I just do like wishfuls or hopefuls, it's just kind of like my summer reading list, I guess. And whether I follow it entirely is, you know, up to the times and see what happens. And I don't really think that you should approach life that way unless that works for you, but doesn't work for me. In any case, I like to make a little list of like the vibes. It's like a vibe check for the I sound like I have brain rot. In my last video I talked about East of Eden. I haven't told you guys how I feel about it yet. I finished it semi-recently and I still haven't written out a full review about it because I'm struggling a bit to understand what it is I thought of it, or why I didn't give it 5 stars really is the question. I didn't give it 5 stars. I gave it 4.5 for now. It's something that requires some extra thought, and I need to be able to word my opinion on why I thought it wasn't a 5-star book. Not that a 4.5-star rating is bad, because that is a really, really high rating for me as well. I don't know to what extent you guys want to hear me talk about East of Eden more, but if you do, let me know. In any case, one of you left me a comment about The Pearl and how it's kind of like one of your favorite short stories you've ever read, and that it made you really curious about East of Eden. And I actually have a copy of it, so I thought, why not? Let me put this on my little list and read this. I think this is about a family of divers who dive for pearls and try to make their living that way. And someone in the family, I don't know, who's the main character? Kino? Actually, I have no idea, but someone in the family dives and finds a really, really big pearl. And it's sort of like this symbolism of like, oh, wealth and security and safety, and now we're just going to be okay. And I think things don't really turn out that way. So one of those types of stories. I'm excited. Keeping in with the American literature trend, ever since East of Eden, I've been kind of obsessed with American literature, and I'm kind of curious about reading more of it this summer. However, actually, I think a lot of it lends itself to the summertime. So Carson McCullers, never read her. I have a copy of The Member of the Wedding back home, and I'm going back home soon with my partner. We're going to be there for a month, and so hopefully we're going to do a little bit of extra reading while we're there. This is a collection of short stories by Carson McCullers. So this vibe, this like American, I don't even know, this is like what, 20th century American literature? Probably. Something about it, the atmosphere, something about it is really pulling me to it. And on that similar note, The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, it's one of my favorite classics ever. I read it often as a teenager, and I didn't do that too often with classics as a teen. So it was really one of my favorites back then, and I haven't read it in years. So I have this insatiable need to reread this book. It's very atmospheric, as you know, probably. Very atmospheric, very summer vibes. I think maybe it's even set like partially or at least mostly in the summertime, and has like this, I don't know, it has a summer atmosphere. If you guys have any recommendations for classics of like 20th century American literature, or maybe even like 19th century American literature, I don't know, let me know. What's your faves? Next is The Argonauts by Maggie Nelson. You guys know I love Maggie Nelson. She's like my favorite. However, I've never actually read The Argonauts. I have a story about this book. This is the first Maggie Nelson book I ever encountered. I bought it at the airport when I was 16, I think. I really needed to read for the flight, and I literally apparently was willing to pay $39 for it at the time. You see, kids don't understand. In any case, I still have it, so I'm glad. And at the time I did start to read it, it blew my mind. It was definitely the first time I ever read something where I was like, oh, you can write like that? Like that's possible? I remember that feeling very strongly, and I stopped around page 100. I have the magnetic bookmark still in this book. It's a cute little owl. And I'm really glad I didn't like take it out just because I didn't finish the book. And just because I didn't finish the book doesn't mean I didn't love it, because I really loved it back then. However, this is a work of, I believe, it's like queer literature, not literature, it's nonfiction, but like queer, gender, motherhood, womanhood, stuff like that, like just topics that maybe I wasn't super ready to hear about at the time, or didn't have too many opinions yet to like be able to value something like this. Like I did feel a bit out of my depth at 16 reading this, but now that I'm 24, now that I'm like older and I can relate more to stuff like this, I think it's gonna be great. Next is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. This was having its moment, I think maybe a year or two ago on Book Talk, and it's like a memoir of like being in your 20s and like dating and drinking and you know, friendship and all this kind of stuff. I randomly put on the audiobook for this, and the narration was so charming, so funny, like so lively and charismatic and just so British, and it was just such a vibe. So I think I'm gonna maybe pick this up this summer. Maybe it's the kind of thing I can give as like an advice to my younger sisters to read. One of the blurb things says that it's very millennial. I don't know if my younger Gen Z sisters will relate to that. I am not a millennial, but I was raised by millennials because I'm an older Gen Z, and I grew up on the internet that the millennials made, as in they raised me, you know? So I love millennials. I could never hate millennials. We do not give you enough credit for everything you've done for us. That's absolutely true. Either way, I'm really excited to read this. I think it's gonna be fun, and I think I'm definitely gonna get something out of it, even if it's not really about like the dating stuff. Like maybe I'll get something out of the friendship stuff, you know? Next is A.C. Grayling's The Challenge of Things, Thinking Through Troubled Times. This looks like a self-help book. It's not. A.C. Grayling is a philosopher, and he writes about living through times of war and conflict. Throughout this book, it's a bunch of like mini essays about different topics like the First World War and like religion and I don't know, international relations and things like that. And I always like to hear something on like more modern topics from philosophers. I don't often partake in that kind of reading, but I happen to have this book. It was gifted to me by my girlfriend's mother, and she is a remarkable woman. And I don't know if she's actually read this, but in any case, I should read this. The next is super, super fun. It is After Sappho by Selby Wynne Schwartz. I actually started reading this like a day ago and started kind of devouring because the prose is so beautiful, so delectable. It's very difficult to explain what this book is because it's kind of nonfiction, but it's also fiction. It's like a fictionalized, like creative fiction, if that's allowed as a genre. Creative fiction, creative nonfiction, I guess, but it's not nonfiction because it's a lot of conjecture. It's about historical figures, like historical women, and it kind of like writes them as if they were fictional characters, but you know, it's like based in real life, but I don't know how based in real life it is. It's about these like feminist, like queer Sapphic women, and it's written so beautifully, and it's, I don't know, I'm really enjoying. I don't know what it is yet. Like I'm only 50 pages in, so I can't really give you a good descriptor. I can't really give you a good descriptor, but so far it's been really beautiful, really gorgeous, really well written. And of course, since it's like a lot about Sappho, it interpolates a lot of fragments from Sappho, which actually I haven't read, which is really, really at least a little bit embarrassing as a woman who is in a relationship with another woman. So I actually have If Not Winter, fragments of Sappho by Anne Carson. This is Anne Carson, again, one of my favorite writers, but I haven't actually read this, which is so crazy because you would think I have a vested interest in Sappho. I do have a vested interest in Sappho, and yet haven't done this yet. Anne Carson is a classicist, a poet, translator. She's incredible. She's an academic. I'm just curious because these are her translations of Sappho. I'm curious. I have a funny story about Sappho. In my second year of university, I was doing a group project with this dude bro, like this short Balkan dude bro, and he was being such an asshole during the group work. Like he wasn't showing up to meetings, he wasn't doing anything, and so, you know, it was kind of problematic that he was even in our group because everyone hated him for not putting in any effort. But I remember one time he was just this like harmless man, so I was like, so like, what's up, why are you never at the meetings, you know? And he's like, oh bro, I don't know, my thesis is like really, he was in his third year, so he was writing his thesis, and I was like, my thesis is really, you know, a lot of work, I'm always having meetings with my supervisor. And I was like, oh my god, what are you doing your thesis on then? And he was like, Sappho. Dead ass. This Balkan dude bro, straight as can be from what I could tell, was literally doing his bachelor's thesis in literature classics on Sappho, the lesbian. That was so fun. I literally laughed. I laughed innerly so hard. I was bested by a Balkan dude bro. That's so funny to me. There's another book I kind of want to read this summer. I don't know yet. I don't have a physical copy of it, but also I don't really know. I've only seen like a little bit about it online, but some people love it. It's some people's favorite books. It's like one of those like life-changing type things, and that's Call Me by Your Name by Andrea Simon. I have seen the movie and I really love the movie. And the vibe of the movie is incredible. So if the vibe is similar in the book, I'm definitely going to pick that up this summer. But either way, I'm just kind of dabbling in thinking of reading that book this summer. I don't know if it's actually a romance. I hope it's not. I hope it's more of like a literary fiction vibe. In any case, that was it for my little reading list this summer. How are you compiling your reading list? What's the vibe this summer? Are you reading genre fiction, romance? Are we reading nonfiction, memoirs? Are we reading literary fiction? If you guys have any literary fiction or classic recommendations for the summer, please let me know, because that's kind of my vibe right now. I'm always cycling in and out of vibes. You know me. All right, bye guys. See you.